Hi, welcome to today's review. Today we're looking at an ink from the Australian brand Robert Oster Signature Inks, which is one of my favourite brands of ink and a brand that's really made its name on the market in the last little while. And I think a lot of that fame is probably due to one particular ink, the ink we're looking at today, and that is Fire and Ice. This ink is a really great shade of sort of a blue turquoise. It's really well behaved, got great saturation, but I think its X factor has got to be that sheen. It just pops with this incredible red, hence the name Fire and Ice. Now, a quick brand overview if you're not familiar with Robert Oster Signature Ink. As I said, it's an Australian brand, and they have a huge range of colours that are inspired by Australia. So for me, the greens and the blues are particularly spectacular. They also do a range of limited edition inks for things like particular pen shows or product launches and charities. So grab them while you can when they come out, because once they're gone, they're gone. So these inks generally are really well known for the saturation and the vibrancy of the colours with lovely shading, and in this ink in particular, that sheen. They come in a 50ml plastic, environmentally friendly plastic bottle, and retail for about $17 Australian, which is, I think, pretty good value. It's the same sort of price as what you'll pay overseas, depending on your currency. And they are available through a lot of online retailers and also a few sort of brick and mortar stores as well. The company is a small one, and they punch way above their weight. They have a really lovely social conscience, and they have amazing customer relations as well. So if you're not familiar with the brand, I suggest you check it out. I really think that the range of inks is spectacular, something for everyone, and this ink in particular, if you're after something unique. So I have done a little bit of a writing sample of the ink, a few sort of tests just so we know what it's about. We'll start with sort of the industry standard, the 80 GSM Rhodia paper. Now, a lot of these have been done with a Faber-Castell loom, which with a medium nib, which is a pretty sort of, I suppose, wet pen. So it gives us a really lovely chance to look at what the ink can do. As I said, it's a really lovely sort of turquoise blue with some really interesting shading depending on how much ink you're able to put down. With the loom, you get quite a lot of ink, so the saturation is great, and the shading is good, and the sheen really does come through, particularly on this paper. Now, I also tried it in a Platinum Century 3776, as well as a stub nib, and then did a couple of little bits of flex with it. What's interesting is just how that red shows up on the flex, where it lays down quite a lot of ink. It's really beautiful. Even in the fine nib, it's still quite wet, which is really nice, particularly on that pen, which tends to make things a little bit dry. One thing I will say about this ink is that it has a low water resistance. This was just a wet cotton bud, and you can see by the numbers, which was sort of 4 passes over. While it stained the page, I probably could have removed a lot more of that as well. You lost almost all the detail in the writing. So if water resistance is important to you, you might want to look elsewhere, but I don't think that's what the intention of this particular ink is. It's really well lubricated and it flows beautifully. I will look at bleed and feather on some other papers as well, but on this paper it was pretty good. Of course, you get some bleed where I've laid down quite a lot of ink, but generally there's really nothing to mention. With the different pens I tried it in, you can see that in the stub and in the loom, you do get the beautiful shading. You a bit closer so you can see some of that. It's really quite nice. But even in the Platinum, which, as I said, is quite a dry pen, we still managed to get a really lovely vibrancy to the colour. So the other paper I tried on, here it is on Tomoe River 52 gram paper. Super well behaved. Slightly longer dry time, where it was 15 to 20 seconds on the Rhodia. We get 30 to 35 on the Tomoe River, but that's to be expected. The sheen is just extraordinary on this paper, as one would expect, even with the Platinum, which I'll show you a couple of photos of the sheen in closer detail. The first being the sheen from the Platinum, which I never get with other ink, and then of course from the swab. No bleed, except for where I lay down a lot of ink, and perhaps where I punched through a little bit with the Platinum, but you know, generally speaking, super well behaved. Next paper I tried it on, a cheaper paper, the Reflex 80 GSM copy paper. Still quite well behaved, slight feathering on the stub, but even still some of that sheen coming through, which is really cool. Dry time was 10 to 15 seconds, and once again, super well behaved, virtually no bleed, particularly with the standard pens. On the cheapest paper, we get even quicker dry time again of about 5 seconds. This is Spyrex Notebook. You don't get the sheen, you get a little bit of shading, but this is super absorbent paper. It just sort of mopped it up without any issue. And we do see a little bit of bleed with this paper, but that is absolutely to be expected, particularly with an ink that is as wet as this one. So I really like this ink. I'm not going to lie, I think it's a beautiful ink. I love the colour, I love the sheen, and I would recommend it to anyone who wants something just a little bit unique to work with. In terms of the score, I've given it a 4.5 out of 5. The colour is really beautiful. Unlike some of the Robert Oster inks that tend to have sort of a dusty tone, this is really quite vibrant. The performance is great, cleans easily. It works on any paper, in just about any pen. Sheen comes through on just about anything. It's really quite special. X Factor, yeah, that sheen, once again, that is the X Factor that's put this ink on the map and made it so popular, and rightfully so. It is a great ink. And then the value for money, at $17 a bottle, I think it's pretty good value, particularly seeing as though it's not a mass-produced ink. It's sort of a small operation, and they are sold all over the world. But it's an Australian company, so it's sort of boutique, I suppose. So for $17 a bottle, I think it's really great value. For 50 mils as well, you would spend in Australia at least double that to get a bottle of Iroshizuku or some of the higher end Sailor inks for the same volume. So I really think $17 for a bottle is great value, especially when it's got some sort of X factor like the sheen on this ink. So if you don't know the brand, check it out. Robert Oster Signature Ink Fire and Ice. It's a beautiful ink. It's a beautiful colour. The other inks this company produces are beautiful. I'll be looking at a few more in the future, including my personal favourite, which is the Maroon 1789. And if you've got any questions about the ink, feel free to drop me a message. If you like this video or found it helpful, please hit the like button or subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications button if you want to be kept up to date with videos that I put out. Please feel free, as I said, to email me any questions or any inks or pens you'd particularly like me to look at. And in the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll see you soon.